How far? All right, good evening and welcome to the Thursday, September 15th Scarborough School Board Workshop. Today we are going to hear from Dana, our Building Steering Committee Chair, and Lisa from Harriman about the status of our building and where we are in the process of the K-8 strategic project and the new school, the new primary school. So I will go ahead and turn it over. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just gonna skip right over the requirements.
Very exciting presentation.
Yes, I'm so excited to just jump right in. I'm gonna skip right over. Diane, can we call the attendance, please?
Absolutely. Mrs. Giftis?
Here.
Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Miss Leong?
Here.
Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Miss Bertulia?
Here.
And Mr. Shumway?
Here.
Thank you. Now would everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, after that great buildup, now I will turn it over to the two of you. Thank you so much again for joining us this evening.
Yeah, no, thank you. Lisa's done all the work here, putting the presentation together. Over the past few months, the team has really been working towards a number of different things, which we'll cover in the presentation, but tremendous amount of work. I think the thing that we need to emphasize is that there is a time pressure associated with all of this, particularly with securing a site, which is being worked on. But there are a lot of steps yet to go. I think the more of this that we do in terms of education, we've done a tremendous amount of community outreach. We've got a communication committee now established with multiple forms of the ability to reach out and touch people through all the different mechanisms. We've also been doing a tremendous amount of community outreach in person, sending flyers to the schools, going to public events. A number of people here participated in that. So I really appreciate all of the efforts and off-hour support. So I think there's a lot of good progress. We still have ways to go. And so tonight we'll talk about sort of where we've been, the status and where we go from here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa and
Perfect.
I'll jump in, fill in where needed, but
Awesome.
Lisa's done a great job pulling together some information tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana. With that, we'll jump to the next slide here that has the agenda. So tonight we really want to go over the overall process, the schedule, kind of show you where we're at, where we're going, and then go over what's been defined so far. So the why now, the goals, and the solution. And then we'll get into what is our current focus and what is on the horizon. There's 4 major areas that we are kind of simultaneously moving forward, and they're in different stages, but those 4 areas are the site selection process, programming, educational visioning, concept design, communication, and community outreach. And then we'll get into how you can help and questions and answers. So the process and schedule, we can go to the next one. So this is overall the big pieces that lead up to referendum. And that is our focus right now, is really getting this project ready for a referendum. But there are so many steps along the way. And a lot of that is community engagement and getting the community involved, educated, and brought up to speed every step of the way. So the major parts you see here in the yellow, we are focused on planning. A lot of that's done. We're really in the programming and site selection very heavily right now and starting to fold over into concept design. Above the yellow line is all of the outreach to the community. And we think of community in 2 levels. One is the internal community of the school, and the other is the external community outside the school. So we'll go over some of that outreach in the presentation. And then we are continuously meeting with the advisory committee and the building committee throughout the process, as well as updating school board and town council. So next slide. My eyes twitching. Overall schedule. So we're looking at a November 23 referendum. And so with the November 23 referendum, that's a little over a year from now. We started in February 22. During that time, we are working on site selection and concept design, essentially getting a site and a building designed and estimated and ready for referendum. Then after that, we go into conducts, we call them construction documents. To develop the design and get the documents ready to be bid, it takes about a year. bidding around November 24th, assuming that we're at a 23 referendum. And then that will take about 30 months to construct, give or take, depending on what the final solution is, which means it would be ready for occupancy the fall of 2027. So we're really still in the infancy of this whole process, but there's a lot to get done between now and the referendum in order to make sure that's successful. And then we can have kiddos in the school and the solution executed in 2027. Next slide. What has been defined? So we'll jump right in. Hopefully everybody's seen this. We have tried really, really hard to get this out in front of everybody, from community events, websites. We've had people deliver them to local daycare. So we're really trying to get folks in the school, outside the school. I think they went home with kiddos. We're at back to school nights. But what this is doing is it's really telling you about the project. This is more than just a primary school. This is a strategic solution K-8. Why we're doing it. We've already exceeded the capacity of our existing schools. The infrastructure doesn't support the students' basic educational needs. Teachers are doing an amazing job. The buildings just aren't able to support everything they're doing. And we need a sustainable solution to house our current, emphasize current and growing population. Why now? Again, we need to support the kids today. There's a lot of growth happening in the community. That aside, we are over capacity. And the planning and construction, as you just saw, it's about 5 years from now to where it would be ready. The goals: consolidate the 3 primary schools as part of the strategic solution, remove all 30 district portables that exist at the K-2 schools and the middle schools, or middle school, alleviate the overcrowding at the middle school, and strategically coordinate and align the project with other community initiatives in the town. So on the next slide, you'll see a lot of you have this in front of you, but this information, the why now, the goals, impacts of doing nothing, program inadequacies, is on the website as well. You can download the PDF, you can share it with friends, you can direct people there. We're trying to make sure that everybody has the base understanding as to why we're doing this, and then we'll continue to issue more flyers to educate people in this process along the way. So on the next slide, what is the solution? A K strategic solution that provides educational equity by consolidating the 3 primary schools into 1 new consolidated K-3 primary school. This reorganizes grade levels. So what this does is, right now we have overcrowding at the middle school, and there's a whole grade out in portables. So if we take that 6th grade and we move it to Wentworth, and we take the 3rd grade and we move it down to the primary schools, all of a sudden with this new project, we have alleviated the overcrowding at the middle school. We've removed those portables. We've kept the same number of grades at Wentworth, and now we've created a school that adequately hold and educate the K-3 population. So you can see at the bottom is a diagram that starts to illustrate how this is done. So how is this achieved? We've kind of just gone over that, but create 1 school for K-3 that supports a school within a school model. So that provides small learning communities within the overall school, equitable services, and increased program time for all K-3 students. Eliminate overcrowding at the middle school by moving the 6th grade and moving from the middle school to Wentworth, and the 3rd from Wentworth to the consolidated school. As we talked about, this removes a grade from the middle school and provides the same number at Wentworth. And it also removes the portables. Something else to keep in mind is we don't know where this is going yet, but if it does not end up on the campus, this removes a whole grade level from the campus, which will help with the traffic issues as well. Slide. Eliminates all the portables, as we discussed, and the schools will remain in their existing configurations until this new school is built. So one of the things about building this new school is the kids that are in school now will not experience construction. You won't have to move them in and out of their school or phase construction with portables and other things like that, and really impact their educational journey. And then the existing primary schools and their sites become town-owned property. And this is a property that's available to address other town and community needs. We don't know what those are. We don't know what that's going to be at this time. But potential uses, and these are just hypothetical, could be open green space, parks, athletic field, community services. There's been talks about maybe an early childhood education center to incorporate pre-K or other uses. And you can see there's a link here. We have also addressed this. We have a frequently asked questions page on our website. It goes into even more detail around this. So I invite you guys to go there as well. So next we get into, and I see got a little formatting got a little messed up, but what are we currently focused on and what's on the horizon? So a site selection. Right now, where we're at is in the process of site selection. We also have a detailed answer as to what that process is, again, on our frequently asked question page on the website. It is a multi-tiered process. One of the biggest drivers is selection criteria. There's a lot of predefined criteria, but then the most important is the community criteria. And so the building committee has defined criteria, and we've also reached out to the community to confirm that criteria through a workshop. And there's a lot of alignment in what that is. And you can see that again on the website, what those selection criteria were. This is the tiered process that we go through. Really, we collect the criteria, we weight the criteria, we collect data about all sorts of, pretty much the whole area in Scarborough. And then we start to screen sites, and we start with dozens of sites. And then we are able to whittle it down to about a dozen, and then we're able to whittle it down to about 3 or 4. And through this process of continuing refining, the goal is to come up with a recommended site based on the selection criteria and the weighting of that. Next slide. So what's on the horizon for site selection? A site recommendation. We anticipate that we will have a site recommendation by the end of the year. And the committee, the building committee, will make a recommendation to all of you as to what that is and walk you through how that was arrived at. And as part of that, there'll be a preliminary site layout. So looking at where the building may go, where parking may go, how all that would work. And then we get into the next 2 things are site concept design, where we develop it further. And we're really getting it ready for referendum. But before that, there's conversations we're going to have with everyone around site procurement. And I'll let Dana maybe speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's important. I talked a little bit about this in the excuse me, town council workshop, but we will have to secure something prior to the referendum, the future referendum. So that's a step that we're going to have to work through. There are a couple different models that we could use. Either we could choose to purchase a piece of land outright and, build on it using a normal bonding process. The other option, which is a less common option, but it's one that I think has a lot of financial viability, is to do a public-private partnership. It's essentially a lease to lease a facility. Both of those options are viable options. We've confirmed them with legal that, is something that the town could do. But with that said, that procurement step is really critical for us to be able to progress the design. We have to have a piece of land identified and secured in order for us to progress the school design. So when Lisa talks about concept design, these are the very early conceptual stages of saying, okay, the building will fit. We think it's going to be a single story here, a 2-story here. The topography works with the site in order for parking to work out, and stormwater structures to work out. But to really get to and be able to progress the actual design of the building, we have to have the site, procured and secured. So those are steps that are going to be critical. Those are the next, I would say, for the next few months, the critical steps that we're going to have to work through and define. And then it'll take a lot of close coordination with town manager, the town council, in this group here.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
The procurement is prior to the referendum.
It will have to be.
So the town will purchase that land before the school's voted on, is that right?
Yes, assuming that we go the purchase route. So, and that's where there's, like I said, there's a couple different paths and neither one of them are simple paths. If we find for example, if you find a very willing, and patient buyer, we could say, well, you know, we can do a purchase and sale agreement with some stipulation around a penalty if we don't purchase the property at the end of some time period. But I think in order for us to meet the schedule and progress the design, we'll have to secure it firmly somehow, and with good certainty. So, you know, I'm saying we need to purchase a site. I don't see us finding a buyer that would be willing to wait that long for maybe, unless there was a significant sum of money associated with waiting. So that's something that we're gonna have to work through. I would be lying if I said we had the answers to how that process would go, right now. If we were a private organization, this would be very simple, but we're not. So we have to work through the public process and those steps.
If we do the public-private partnership, the second option, does that require the money upfront like a sale would?
It depends, I think, on the structure of the agreement. A public-private partnership in a lot of ways is a bit like a lease. And for the town, the benefit is that if the project were to be in a TIF district, it would be, and the town would be able to do this, we would be able to fund and build this project on less than half of the cost of what we would pay to build it ourselves, which is significant when you're talking $100 million plus project. If you say, well, it's only gonna cost you half. And at the end of that time period, the town will own the assets and the land. It's a pretty attractive offer, but it's complex to work through. So in order to make that happen, you end up having to come to some lease agreement. And that lease agreement is typically structured in a way that says, okay, I'm agreeing to build you this thing in this way, in this period of time. In exchange for that, I get lease payments, you know, every year of an X amount. And at the end of the lease term, you get the building and the land, or not. You can structure it all different ways. So it doesn't require upfront. There's not usually a significant upfront cost. But again, it all depends on how the deal is structured.
And so as Dana said, we're digging into what steps are necessary.
Yep.
And how we go about that. So that is definitely, it says on the horizon, but they're actively working through that at this time.
Is that something that the town has to approve? Look like the people of the town? Does it have to, they have to decide it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that?
It would have to go through, it would have to go through I believe, the same public process. So whether it be a bond, if the town, it's similar to a bond because it's a long-term commitment. It would be a 20+ year financial commitment for the town that we would not be able to back out of. So it would, in my mind, it would have to go through referendum, just like anything else.
But so prior to deciding if we're gonna build it, we'd have to decide if we wanted to do it that way? Is that what you're saying? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, so and that's a little bit of the chicken and the egg game with the site procurement, right? Because if we, that's why it's a little bit of a difficult conversation to plot through, because if you choose one path, it's a different set of requirements. If you choose the other path, this is a totally different set of requirements. So
Because they could vote to do one thing and then when it comes up, they can say, no, we don't want to do that because it's two processes.
well, so yeah, I mean, you would know up front if you were going to go one way or the other. Like we would have to make that decision. So if we said, hey, we're going to purchase the land and we're going to, do the project ourselves. If we were going to do it through some type of public-private partnership, we would, those would be things that we would have to hammer out within the next few months. So.
And potentially the purchase of land, if we went that route, we're talking 2 referendums, right? Because if it's over the dollar amount, then we So that might impact the timeline as well.
Well, I think you could secure it through a purchase and sale agreement. Through some penalty that would probably be maybe under the threshold. And, you know, come to an agreement to say, yeah, we have to put it to referendum, but here's the structure of the deal. Here's the X amount of money, earnest money essentially. And if it fails referendum, then, you know, it's just like buying a house. So. But those are the things we have to work through with Tom, town council, and this team. Once we land on site, which we still have a little ways to go.
Okay. Jump into the next update. So programming and educational visioning. So we've been working extensively with the educators in the spring. And then getting as much information as we can until summer break. So you can see all the meetings that we've had with folks, whether meeting with principals or doing surveys or going to the schools, just being there for questions and seeing the spaces and answers. Educational visioning. So there's programming where we're really trying to understand what are the spaces you have, how are you using them, what do we need going forward? And then there's educational visioning. And this is where you're really talking about educational priorities as we really think about the future of schools and how the building can support those educational priorities and kind of future ready thinking for the building. And so there's been several of those so far, really focused on educational priorities. We've done the kickoff meeting with leadership. We've done a community forum with the community. We've done it with the staff. And then most recently, we just did it with what we call the educational working group, which is a mix of teachers and principals and community members and parents doing the same thing. And why we do it many times is we want to hear from different audiences, and then we can start to see where the alignment is. You start to see about the top, 3 or 4 things that keep rising to the top. And we know those are really the areas we need to hone in on. We have 2 coming up. We have one Monday night. And this is where we start to get into design patterns. And this is really starting to think about organizational patterns or the way to which we experience the spaces that support these educational priorities. And we define the guiding principles. And then the next one is where we get into bubble diagramming and adjacencies. And we start to really look at how would we organize a classroom community? How would we organize the community aspects of this or the innovation aspects? And so they're really great workshops. We've had some great attendance. We still encourage folks to participate. And so the 2 of those are coming up, one on the 19th, the other one, I can't quite see the date on the bottom. It might be the 18th. No, the one below that, it got cut off. I think it's the 18th. Thank you. And then we're doing some staff workshops coming up. And then really exciting is community forum number 3. Community forum number 3 is where we take time and we educate the public on what design patterns and best practices are for this age demographic. And really how much has changed in educational design over time. And we canvass the community about what is the essence of the primary schools. With that, we then ask them to pick out the design patterns that they think support that essence. And together we create a design statement. And this design statement is what we use throughout the entire design. We go back to that design statement time and time again to make sure every move and every decision is through that lens. And it's really the community that is giving us the vision for this school. So it's a really fun event. We really encourage folks to come. We're doing it twice. We're trying to do it during the day for folks that can't come at night. And we're doing it in the evening. They're offered virtually and in person. So hopefully that will allow us to get to lots of folks. This is just a sampling of when we did the visioning sessions with the staff. And I'm sorry for the formatting. When we sent it over, it got a little jumbled, but you can see when we asked about educational priorities, some of the things we heard. We also asked about architectural priorities. And then what are the top community priorities? And then we asked them to prioritize, we introduced this idea of design patterns and asked them to prioritize those. And you can see how certain things started to rise to the top. Things like agile classroom neighborhoods, flexible furniture. And then this is when we asked the 4 different workshops where the educational focus areas are. There were about 5 that rose to the top. And so the 4 that were in the top 6 out of all those groups were student-centered learning, social emotional learning, universal design for learning, differentiated instruction, and then out of 3 of the groups, health and wellness made it to the top 6. So again, this starts to just give us an idea as to where the community is at. And this is just what's on the horizon. We have the 2 workshops coming up. You can see in workshop 3, all the different things, the bubble diagrams on. And then we have other primary school workshops in student engagement. We'll be out in the schools engaging with the students and getting their opinion. And then we are actively building the building program. And that is a Excel document that lists all the different spaces that need to be in the school, the sizes, what functions happen there. And we will continually develop that through all these conversations. And that's really what helps us design the building. Concept design. Just in the very early stages of this, and what we're doing at this point is really just looking at precedents. What are different ways that other communities have done a school within a school and really taken a large school and make it function like small schools. And so you'll see that they look different in plan. The one on the left-hand side essentially looks like a pinwheel, and that's referred to it as a pinwheel organization. There's a core space with a lot of core community areas, and then it's this pinwheel of classrooms. And those are organized around small little courtyards. The one on the right-hand side is a core space, and then we call them finger plans, these fingers of classrooms that come off of them.
And so each one of those would be like a grade essentially.
Possibly, yeah. And some of those schools were very large, so it could have been a couple, but and so for example, the one here on the left-hand side, we call it a main access. Everything is off this main corridor. And then if you think about it as a grade, let's say that one has 3 grades, then each one of those wings might be a grade level, or you may put, your youngest learners on the lower area mixed with some others. That's what we'll start to get into, is we'll start to play with organizational patterns with your program and look at how those lay out. The one on the right-hand side is it's unique. It's a pre-K through 12. So this has every grade level in the building. They set it up to where in the core, right across from that circle courtyard, is all the core spaces. It's the main entrance after the school doors are closed. When buses are dropping off and things like that, there are separate entrances for the lower grades and the upper grades. It's very well done. It was really interesting to hear about all the kind of big and little opportunities that they do in this school. And then the next slide, and similar pinwheel plan that you saw before, but what this does that I think is really important to think about is when we're in the school, we have to make it easy and fun to find our way around. And so this is an example of how they took the local flora and fauna and topography and celebrated it. And each floor has a different theme. So the bottom floor is the caverns, the middle floor is the valley, the upper floor is the mountains. And then each classroom community is its own hiking trail. And so it celebrates these different local hiking trails, and they do this through imagery and color, and it makes it so kids know, hey, I'm part of the valley floor on, trail, whatever. And all of a sudden they have their identity in the school with their group. So there's ways that we can think about that as well. So what's on the horizon? Design patterns, which we'll be doing with the visioning group. Organizational patterns, we'll start to take your program and lay them out in different organizational patterns to explore. Bubble diagrams, this is where we look very high level, what wants to be next to where in the building or wants to be separate. We'll start talking about school tours. There's no better way to understand what you do or do not want to do than touring things that already exist. And then we will get into the concept floor plans And once we feel confident this is the direction we want to have in the concept, we'll really start to design the building so it can be estimated for referendum. Community engagement and communication and community outreach. This has been our main focus all summer long. We wanted to make sure that we got out to everybody. They knew this existed. They knew that it was going on. And we knew we had to get out in multiple ways. So we pretty much called an all hands on deck, let's focus on communication. So we have a website dedicated to the project. It is linked on the school website page. And it is, I would call it beyond active. I think it changes every day. There's something new that gets posted. We also are on Facebook. All the Facebook posts are also on the website. Lots of stuff being pushed out on both of those avenues. And community outreach. We found and we know the best way to get in touch with people and get people to know is to meet them where they're at. People are busy. People don't have time to come to meetings. People have lots of other things, and people that want to come just don't have time. So we've been trying to meet them where they're at. We were at Summerfest. We have some photos of that. That was really great. We got a lot of great feedback from the kids. Jillian was a huge help.
I think that was the best educational visioning session. We'll see some of the educational visioning.
They
in a
taught
minute.
us a lot. They even may have found a site for us or two or three. And then we have we have done 2 community forums and we have about 7 planned. So we plan to be out and in front of folks as much as we can. So next slide, the website. So this is how you get to it. This is the Scarborough Public School. There's a button in the upper left, building project. You click that and you will see the menu on the left-hand side. We have project news. We have meetings, we have frequently asked questions. I think we have 7 or 8 up there. We have project history, project flyers. You have the 2 flyers we have right now in front of you. Those are downloadable PDFs. There's another button that just got added today, how to get involved. And so you click that button and it will come up with all the different ways you can get involved and Genius signups to click on and be able to get involved. So a huge thank you to Brian, who has done an enormous amount of work to pull this together, and everybody else on the communication committee. So we're also on Facebook. All of our Facebook posts are shared through the school and then again on the website. One of the current things we have that we're pushing out on all of fronts is the advertisement for community forum number 3. So like us on Facebook, share the posts, let people know what's going on. And then here's what all of our community members told us at Summerfest. So we asked if they were to build a school, what would they build? And we asked them to draw us a picture. And we had lots of very, very dedicated participants. We had over 70 drawings and endless creativity. On the next page, you'll see some of the drawings. We had a couple adults submit. The 2 adult submissions are classrooms that are not portables and a school that is not on the track. We had 3 sites recommended. We had an underground school. We had an outer space school and a boat school.
All of those solve the site selection.
It
process
really
pretty
does.
easy.
And we might have to procure an old cruise ship, but.
Right. Might get a deal on one of
We
these. right?
might. And then the next one are just some really fun, it's amazing what they can think of. There's a lot about art. There's a race car school. Lots of pools, lots of dogs, lots of pets. We had pets that were protecting the school. We had pets that were therapy dogs. We had lots of candy stores. We had an outdoor school and we had countless unicorns. So
The one though, on the bottom left, if you look at that one, Lisa told me about this one. She says, apparently the person that drew that said, well, this is a dragon to guard the school from bad people. And, I think it's really telling that kids are a lot of this is pretty interesting stuff, but I really hand it to the kids. The kids are seeing the need, right? They're seeing the need for security, the need for more space, the need for, not having portable classrooms. And,
Separate art.
it's amazing that they're able to visualize it in this way. So
There's also a bear trap. by the
bear
front door.
trap, yeah. And I mean, there was, I don't know if we've digitized all of these,
We
but they
did.
were amazing.
They really are. No, we have and this is a similar outreach that we do in the schools. So we like to team with the art teachers and do the same exercise. And it's just amazing, the dialogue that we have with the kids. And, just really what is reinforced with a lot of this is we see a lot of that connection to the outdoors. And kids really enjoy being outside and being connected to that. And so you see that come across in a lot of these. And art, I have to say, art was reiterated. I do like the upper right one where there's a teacher hangout. But we could go on and on. There's so many great ideas.
This also might be a really good way to engage, parents through the project, through the kids,
Yeah.
And have, I don't know if is there an assignment that could be done within the schools at the lower grade levels to help to engage them and get the parents engaged in the process and help. This something that maybe we should consider.
Absolutely.
Lisa, when you go into the schools and do these with the kids, are you doing K-3 students?
We can do any age group
Any-
that we want, that you'd like us to, depending on how far we want to reach. We can even go beyond that too. We found in this exercise at Summerfest, we probably had the most engaged audience up until about 4th, 5th grade.
Watching you guys at Summerfest, it was amazing to see how long each child would stand there for and really put all the details in all their work. So I appreciate all of that, and it's a nice way to get an insight of what's going on.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, what's on the horizon? Community forums. You can see at the bottom, we have one on the calendar and we have several coming up to be determined on the dates, but winter and spring and fall are the next ones we'll be targeting. And so you'll see overview, project overview, site recommendation kind of repeated. It depends on when that recommendation comes out, but those are generally the topics we're going to cover. And then the next is community informational involvement opportunities. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we have an update on the forum. So this is generally, this is an example of a forum that we ran for another school district. And they came to consensus, and there's a process we go through to bring them to consensus on their top 3 words that captured the essence of their school. And they picked celebrating diversity, integration into the urban fabric, and inclusion. And then those are the images or the design patterns they selected, and their design statement you can see on the bottom there. But they become very poetic and really kind of the theme for the whole process. So again, I can't say it enough. Please attend. It's a really rewarding process, really fun. And we want to hear your voice. Here are all the ways to get involved. So this is what's on the website. You can attend meetings. We meet monthly as a committee. You can join a subcommittee. Right now, communications is active, very active. We're about to kick off building systems and sustainability. Participate in public forums. There's a contact button on the website. Contact us with your questions or send folks there. Follow us on Facebook. Inform your friends and neighbors of the need. That's why we made the flyer, a printable flyer, downloadable flyer. Please, or if you need copies, let us know. Just get the word out. We've had in the past, if folks are interested, we can set you up what's called a meeting in a box, to where we educate you on where we're at in the project, all the different materials, and then you host something in your own neighborhood and educate your neighbors, get them involved as well. Volunteer at election day or back to school night. We had volunteers last night at the middle school, handing out flyers. And there is Genius sign up for all of those things, Jillian, on the website. There's opportunities for the farmers market, football games, and we'll keep adding as things come up. And there's just I want to volunteer, but I don't know what to do list. You can submit your name and we can help you figure out what time commitment you are able to offer and where the help is needed. And this is what it looks like on the website. So the get involved button is at the bottom of the list. You click that and it will take you to the body of the page and you can scroll down and look at all the opportunities and click on it, or you can go to the sign up page and do this. How can you help? Give a community member a tour of the website. There's so much information on the website and it is right at your fingertips. If there is a question that comes up, sometimes even once, we turn it into a frequently asked questions so we can address it and everybody has the same response. So let us know what it is. And we will gladly answer it and put it up on the website so it's easily found. Recommend that the community submit their questions to the website, that they attend workshops and forums, volunteer for any of the events, and conduct those informational sessions we talked about with neighbors or peers or community members. So again, the website. The next one. Ooh, that got a little jumbled. Sorry about that. I can see our formatting is a little different on our PowerPoint. So here are all the sort of more close to happening very soon events, I guess. So we have building committee meetings. We have one on September 20th in Town Hall. We have one October 25th and November 15th. These are all posted, or if they're not, they should be posted on the website. Virtual workshops, we have one on the 19th of September and the 18th. And then the community forum on the 12th. And on the right, next to our help wanted ad, you can apply online for any of these events, but these are the ones that are coming up. So we aren't listing the middle school because it's happening right now, but high school on the 21st, we're looking for volunteers to help us get the word out. Back to school night at 8 Corners, Pleasant Hill, Blue Point. These would be really critical for us to get folks to, because of the schools that we're talking about mostly. And that's on the 22nd. And then Wentworth is on the 28th. Some may ask why the high school. This is more about just trying to get it out to the community and everybody in the community, not necessarily the schools that are impacted. If you're looking to hang out at the farmers market on Sundays, we have opportunities, and then all the home games for football. And then I think our next slide is questions and answers. And just a big thank you to all the people who are involved. We have an amazing building committee. You can see all the participants in an amazing communication subcommittee. And there are other committees that are being formed and many people have reached out. And we are getting in the process of getting back in touch with them to form those committees. So that is it.
That's the last time I questioned Lisa about 50 slides in under an hour. I'm sorry.
I can do it quick.
It's very exciting. There's been so much work, and I think everybody up here knows there's been a lot of work, but it's really good to be able to see all the work you and the committee has done. So thank you so very much. I can't begin to tell you how exciting it is and how much we appreciate all of the work. So first, are there any questions for either Dana or Lisa? I'm going to do the one elephant in the room. So the one we get asked a lot, which I think the photos that you show really do justice to explaining the small community feel. And I know this is on the website, but I just was hoping you could talk for a minute about the process of why we did away with the idea of updating the 3 schools and adding the 4th. Would you mind just covering that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll invite Dana to chime in too if you want.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unpack there with that one. I think first and foremost is that when you look at the 3 existing schools, particularly the lots that they sit on, are simply not large enough to accept more building. And that's a requirement for us to meet the demand. I have a chart that I've been working on and I can share it with this group later this week. We have a little tuning to do on the numbers, but you know, when you look at the and maybe I'll just flip my screen around here and give you a feeling for the impact. This will be small, but let's see if I can get it to be bigger.
Essentially what the chart's gonna do is show you we're over capacity right now. And I think.
And
we're-
it's significant. We're not, so this red line represents Scarborough's, and I know this is difficult to see, but this red line represents the capacity of our buildings at the 210 square foot per student level, right? Which is.
And that's the capacity with the portables.
With the portables. This line up here represents the historical enrollment, and at this point for the 2022 school year, we're over 250 students over capacity with the portables. So it gives you a sense of the magnitude of the problem that we're trying to solve. You can't do that with those three schools because there's not enough land. The buildings are so old. You say, well, I'll just build a second story. Well, kindergarten, first grade have to be on the first floor. And if you
The
can't
buildings
build,
weren't structured for
you
either.
cannot build a second story on any of those buildings. Those buildings are lightly built to begin with. Some of them are masonry structures that date back to the mid 40s and early 50s. You know, they're inefficient. And in addition to that, to renovate the schools, you have to have a place to put the kids. So you can't, to renovate a school while it's running, it would be just an absolute disaster. You know, it would be very painful for the teachers, painful for the students. And it would cost massive amounts of money because the construction, instead of having a period where you can go in, do the construction, you're going to be paying contractors to come in at off hours, middle of the night, to do the noisy work, the grinding, the cutting that you can't do during the school day. So it quickly turns the project into a project that would, with this project, we're looking at being online in 2027.
Mhm.
And what do we say for the?
I think it
for the
was
three?
9 to 12 years that it would take. So if we were to build a fourth school, let's just say we build a fourth school and we move one of the schools over there where we renovate and expand. We're not gonna be able to expand it much. We've already compromised play areas at some of these locations. It's that constant moving around process, and then we would have to redistrict the whole area is about 9, I think it was 9 to 12 years. I'll have to look back at the numbers. But it's a pretty long process in order to do that. And you never really have equity because the existing schools, the classroom spaces don't meet the requirements for a classroom for the Department of Education in size. And so we really have to get in and see, can we even move some of those walls? They might be structural. You may have a bunch of classrooms that still don't make it to that size, and therefore, and then trying to insulate those, you'll never get those buildings up to current energy code. So there's a lot of things you'd be compromising if you were to try to renovate those, and they're really postage size lots aren't big enough. And it's a short-term solution because even if we did that, well, what do we do then later if you keep growing? There's no more room to expand. So there's a lot, and you're right, we have this on the website. We've outlined it probably more detailed and comprehensive than we're saying right now as to what the impacts would be if we were to go that route.
We estimated, and I'm on the
You
website
pulled it up.
looking
There
at
you go.
it's 9 to 12 years
There you go. We remembered correctly.
from the start to finish of renovation of the last school. So you would build a new school, and that school would have to be big enough to accept the population that you were going to have in it in the end, plus the additional school. So if you say, okay, well, I'm going to renovate the 3 schools. So you have to close down one existing school and put that population into the new school with the population that would have been in that school to begin with. Then that group moves back to their newly renovated school, and you do the next one and the next one and the next one, and 12 years later, you're done. The cost would be enormous.
Well above what this consolidated school.
I would say it would easily be 4 times what we, 4X.
The other thing to
So-
consider too is with this K-8 strategic solution, we now introduced this idea of third grade. And so if you were to try and alleviate the overcrowding and build those other schools, now you're adding a whole other grade to those other schools.
Yep.
It's gonna get very complex. We're gonna have like, two grades, 2 classrooms per grade maybe in each of those schools. And so now it's not really getting to this idea of being able to have that equity and that collaboration between those grades.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. I had a question. First of all, comment, an observation. This is enormous in terms of its complexity and what's involved to actually pull this off. So congratulations on getting to a point where you feel that you have a plan that you can execute. But there's some things here that I'm looking at that give me more gray hair than I have. And one is the idea that you would be ready to go to a referendum for capital a year from November. That seems very aggressive to me, particularly in view of where you seem to be or not be more appropriately in terms of the site selection. I mean, is this realistic that you're going to be able to have a site that you're going to feel comfortable with and be able to execute against the date, that date for getting public approval?
Yes,
So you feel confident that that is executable?
I do.
Okay, so related to that, you mentioned there are significant advantages to doing it in a TIF district, which would involve a public-private partnership. Our experience as a town with this so far in public-private partnerships has been rocky. Okay, we've had public-private partnership in a newly created TIF since 2018 with a large CEA, $80 million CEA, and it's been rocky. It's been rocky, and I think we've had some structural obstacles, but nowhere near the complexity and the structural obstacles that you're facing. So how are you going to do all this and try to get the best opportunity within a TIF district? Because it just seems to me that that is a big factor. It could be much cheaper, offset 50% of the costs, but I have concerns about how workable it is. It's one thing to be dealing with housing and commercial development. It's another thing altogether to be dealing with the public-private partnership for a school. So do you have a view on that? Like, is there someone who's done it already? I mean, Sanford, I believe, got a pool and a school, and so can you speak to that part of it?
Sure. I'll speak to it from a perspective of my professional perspective. So my role in my personal life is I lead global facilities for IDEX Laboratories, responsible for 115 facilities across the globe.
Bless you. And
We do.
I can't imagine.
We do public-private partnerships, private partnerships, but we have seen public-private partnerships be successful all over the world. We have been involved in multiple TIF districts. I think Maine as a state that is very behind in taking advantage of tax increment financing laws. We've done it very successfully with Westbrook, and Westbrook is actually a great example of a municipality that has really utilized tax increment financing and credit enhancement agreements to their advantage. There are multiple cases of schools all over the United States that have done public-private partnerships very successfully, particularly in urban areas where development isn't possible and you're only looking at redevelopment. In most cases, someone else owns that building. So it's a very powerful tool, particularly for a municipality that I think the town really needs to take a hard look at. We seem to have a very difficult town and I'm a Scarborough resident. We seem to have a very difficult time as a town understanding that these tax increment financing deals benefit the town oftentimes much more than they do the developer. And there are many ways that we can show that. But I don't know of anything that shows that more than having a project be discounted by over 50%. That's a message that we need to carry. And I'm not going to sit here and say the public-private partnership is the way to go. We won't know that until we have someone to do it with. and we have a deal in front of us and it makes sense. But it's something that we absolutely have to explore and do everything in our power, as a community, as a town council, as a school board, to blow the obstacles out of the way. And some of the obstacles are communication, right? The communication with our community members to help them understand why this is something that we should consider. So I'm not saying this is the way we should go, but we have to explore it. It would be financially irresponsible for us not to. And with regard to the schedule has to be aggressive. We cannot let our foot off the gas. We need to work together, and I think really work on putting the putting all of the personal beliefs and things that have happened in the past to the side and really try to work through what makes the most financial sense. Is it a deal structure that supports the best interest of the town? And it hasn't been done in Maine before, but it would be nice to be a first. It'd be a great case to be the first in the state. And I can offer, I mean, there are lots of states that have done this, and maybe good to get some contacts from other municipalities that have done it successfully, executed these deals. So again, it may not work, but it would be, I think it's definitely worth a shot.
So one just quick follow-up on that. So it takes a partner and it takes, space. You mentioned this, you need land,
Yep.
Originally it was 5 acres, 10, 15, now I've heard it's 25. So that number keeps getting bigger and bigger. Is there a partner you have in mind? And is there land that you have in mind that you could do both of those things in an existing TIF district or a new one that would be created?
So I'm not gonna comment on that now
I know you're
because, yeah,
I'm asking you questions you can't answer.
yeah, I mean, the committee's done some really great work. And I'm very optimistic with where we're at. There are a couple of good options on the table. And hoping they bring fruitful results.
Good luck. For support, but eager to learn more, it'd be important for us to learn more as appropriate in order to support you as a council. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being.
Thank you, Don, for being here. Colby.
Just got a question. The school won't be built on the track, right? That's been brought up to me a lot of times and it doesn't sound very fun.
Did you draw that picture?
I can say he didn't. I was not the individual who drew the picture for me.
So I'll say that, their town-owned land is we're always gonna look at all the options. I think that we have a very good selection structure and a process that looks at impact. That's weighted appropriately. So is it being considered? Was it considered? Yes, it was. And it will be appropriately ranked with the weighting process. And but every site has different challenges. So.
All right, are there any other questions?
That graph that you showed was up on the website, is up on the website? No?
Yeah,
No.
we're still working on it.
Just made it an hour ago.
We have to dot all the i's and cross all the t's and then people share.
Yeah, I think that would be a great one to share, because I think one of the things I've also heard, even when we've had our town council, our joint workshop, is that I think people are looking forward at what's coming and perhaps not understanding that the actual problem is right now. Like, we are already at overcapacity. So regardless of the building that comes in or the new families that move in, we are already at a place where we need this.
Yeah. And I think, there's always, you can always say, well, we can cram more students into the classroom than we can. But that's becoming, I mean, there are so many other issues that surround, the number of students is one, it's one problem. But there are other things that I think are even more important than that, security being one of them, especially with some of the recent events we've seen, the logistics, the cost, and the feasibility of operating these buildings for much longer. They're definitely getting Very little.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you both again so very much. And
Yep.
thank you, Don, for joining us as well. This was a really informative workshop and I look forward to seeing everybody at our upcoming events that you've laid out and having you back again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Thursday, September 15th Scarborough School Board meeting. Diane, would you mind calling attendance? Please?
Sure. Mrs. Giftis?
Here.
Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Ms. Leong?
Here.
Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Ms. Bertulia?
Here.
Mr. Shumway?
Thank you. Would everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation.
All right, agenda item 4.0 are adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments this evening?
No adjustments.
Agenda item 5.0 are public comments on the agenda items. Is there anybody here wishing to make public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, I will close public comment. Agenda item 6.0 is an Eagle Scout project update from Nathan Clive. So I would love for Kelly Crosby, the principal at Wentworth, to come up and introduce Nathan to us.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Crosby, the principal at Wentworth School, and I'm so happy to be here this evening to introduce Nathan Clive. Nate is actually a former Wentworth student who is now a high schooler at Baxter Academy and is very close to achieving the level of Eagle Scout, which is the highest level of achievement in scouting. So part of that process is an Eagle Scout project, and Nathan chose to carry out his project at Wentworth School at his alma mater. And we have already greatly benefited from his work. He's here this evening to share the scope and the sequence, and it really spanned over 18 months. He's been working with us on this project. And he's going to share the final outcome of his very hard work. And I am here this evening to publicly thank this young man for his service to our school and to our community. Like I said, it has already made a difference in our school, and it certainly will for years to come. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Nathan Clive.
All right. Hello, everyone. I have one of the signs that I built. I built an extra copy just for myself for meetings just like this, actually. As you can see, it's fairly plain, but that's what I have. From everywhere under here is submitted in or submerged in concrete. I don't know how well you guys can see it. But the post cover, that's the word. I love forgetting words. So the post cover was made so that it was a clear line of where the concrete would start and stop. And then, well, it would also look a lot nicer and would be a lot harder to rot away the wood. And then 2 screws on each side, or 1 screw on each side. But that was enough to stabilize it. And then I can't remember what we used to secure it, but I believe it was AZEC glue. But then, yeah, I used AZEC basically for the top of the sign and the actual sign post, so that it would require less maintenance and it wouldn't really rot as much. This actually proved very helpful when I was making the finishing touches, just to make it look all nice before I officially turned it over. There was quite a bit of writing under the signs because some of the plexi had broken. And that was very easy to erase. And then I believe there was Sharpie actually on some of them, but it wasn't a whole lot. So that was very easy to clean up compared to wood, so. I'll get further into the design considerations in a minute. But as everyone can read on the slideshow here, the purpose was basically to provide clear and concise rules for all of the pieces of equipment and all of the play areas. And then that was ended up proving very helpful with the summer program. I actually had one of the teachers come up to me, or I don't know if they're teachers or not. One of the people who runs the summer program came up to me and basically said it was actually very helpful for setting clear and concise rules. Here's the fun design considerations. Basically, the first consideration was the height of the signs. I wanted them short enough, basically, where new kids coming into the school could read them. But then also, you know, a lot of kids wouldn't sit on them. That does obscure the sign. So that is a reason that we had to consider for the height. I talked a little bit about general maintenance of the sign, basically. There's not a whole lot to it, but basically just the design consideration of why I chose AZEC and a post cover. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is I built 16 of these, 3 extra for the school, and then 12 were actually installed. And then this is the extra one. And then I don't know how well you guys can see it, but this corner has a QR code, which I made a video. It's about 30 seconds each, basically going over all of these rules. With the K Kids and Cub Scouts, I had them actually film the video, and I'll get more into how I actually made the videos a little bit later in the slides. Yeah. Installation considerations were basically, you know, I had to get the site plan, so I made sure I wasn't running into any electrical lines, because that would not be super fun to run into while digging. And then other than that, I really just had to make sure that it was actually close enough to the area and equipment so that it would be seen and actually, you know, recognized as this is specifically for this, and not like on the back fence where it's not exactly associated with each piece. And then the hard part specifically around that is making sure that kids don't run into it, because kids run on a playground, surprisingly enough. Yeah, that's pretty much all the installation considerations. So I actually went into 3 classrooms to get input on how I should film these videos. And basically that was about an hour each class. And I went into a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classroom. I worked with the Cub Scouts and K Kids to film them. As you can see a picture there. And then that was probably the best picture I took from with students in a classroom. So, yeah. So I have an actual working copy of what is on the sign. Let's pass these around. And one for the audience too. So the QR codes actually do work. If you want to scan them with your phone and look at the short video on the surfboards. I'm not sure how well it will work for anyone who's watching at home. Good, I wasn't sure because the Wi-Fi is sometimes a bit spotty. So yeah, I mean, this was fairly a hard to easy project. It definitely took a lot of planning because I had to go through all the oh so fun paperwork for an Eagle Scout project. And yeah. We have the actual video here too, if you want to play that or not. And then, you know, the donors at the end, because they are a very important part of this project. And then, yeah, basically it was, the videos weren't super fun at the first part because I messed up with filming the process. The camera shot with a cold tone, and it was also very windy out that day. So I did end up having to reshoot the Cub Scout videos. So I went to the K Kids and I had them record in the green screen room for the sound. And then we, about a month later, I think, a week later, I don't know, however often the K Kids meet, at the next meeting I went and I basically met with them again and I finished recording the green screen stuff and we actually went out to the playground and basically just had them play on the equipment. I'm sure it was a very fun day for them. And then basically the editing, the oh so fun part, basically it's just taking out the green screen and editing out any like misspeaking and all that. It wasn't super hard. It just took time to do each video. And then I actually put together all of those videos into a larger video for teachers to actually use at the beginning of the year. And then a bunch of pictures of the finished signs. We had the building process in there a little bit, which is all of those signs lined up. And then we had the actual installation with the sonotubes and all that. And then the signs not looking so pretty because some concrete got on it a little bit, but those were cleared up. And then an actual picture of me almost a year ago now, actually, just standing next to the sign being as it was after it was installed. And then the final thank you to the sponsors. So basically it was Ace Hardware, Clark Insurance, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Home Depot, Hannaford's, family, friends, and this basically all of the Scarborough community who donated. Ooh, I can speak. Who donated to the GoFundMe. I think I raised almost $700 for this project, and I have a little bit left over that I will be donating to the school. And then I just want to say thank you specifically to Ms. Crosby and Mr. Jepson, who really helped put this project together. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? No.
I'd like to say, I think it's absolutely fantastic what he did. The time that you had to put into this and for the cause, and
Thank you.
amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
That, everything about that was great. What made you decide that that would be your project?
I had some teachers come up to me from Wentworth saying they wanted basically they wanted like storyboard signs to put on the fence. And then from there the idea developed into expectation signs.
Excellent, excellent.
Did you dig the hole you fell?
I had a bunch of Boy Scouts help me with that, but yes, I did
Delegate,
dig one of the
delegate.
holes, so.
I will just say there's a reason why there's not many Eagle Scouts. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort and it is a lot of time that you spent doing this. And you and your family should be so incredibly proud. All the considerations you took in, I never would have thought about how do we make this at a height where kids can read but not sit on it. I mean, you really very clearly articulated how you have thought through every piece of this, and it is something you should be very proud of. And it's something that's going to be around for many, many, many years to come. And all these kids that come through Wentworth that now are going to be able to see your project. It's very exciting. And I just want to thank you for considering our district in doing this. So thank you very much for your work.
Can you move them to the new school?
All right, are there any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much for coming and giving us this update. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, agenda item 7.1 is new business. I'm going to bundle 7.1, the meeting minutes of July 22nd, 2022 workshop. 7.2, the meeting minutes of July 12th, 2022 business meeting. I'm sorry, just the two. So do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we're all here, so we can raise our hand. So all in favor? All right, thank you. Agenda item 7.3 is the second reading of policy IJJ, which is the selection of educational materials. This is the policy that we brought forward 2 meetings ago to talk about, and we took in the questions and comments from the board about the policy and went back and discussed it this week at our policy meeting. And really the discussion was around how do we maintain the spirit of our district's goal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, while also being mindful of the fact that we have not, as mentioned, defined this. We don't have a role yet, and we haven't defined this among us or among the district or with our families. So where we ended up, if you look at that policy, what we ended up doing was removing at the very top of the policy, we did take out the sentence that said, the sentence read, with the assistance of professionally trained staff, including those trained using a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So what we did was take out that initial sentence of that part of that sentence. It says including those trained with using a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So now that paragraph just reads that we will delegate the work with the assistance of professionally trained staff. The rest of the policy we did leave intact. So first, do I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy IJJ, selection of educational materials?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate that you guys took this back and made some adjustments. I am still not comfortable where the diversity, equity, and inclusion still remains in the policy, so I am not going to support it.
I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of our goals as a board, and we really need to go back to the goals that we have. And we can't be, in my opinion, updating our policies and not considering that as we move forward.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right, so those in, let's do this, those in favor of of approving the second reading of policy IJJ? And then those opposed? Thank you. All right, agenda item, excuse me, 7.4 is appointments. 7.4.1 is the middle school math teacher.
Okay, so Noah Phillips has been selected to fill his position created by a resignation. Mr. Phillips earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in secondary education with a focus in math from the University of Maine in Farmington. He's been a math teacher at Kennebunk High School since 2005.
Fantastic, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the middle school math teacher?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Great, thank you. Agenda item 7.4.2 are the middle school club advisors.
So between the middle school club advisors and the high school club advisors, and then the lead teachers, it's about 97 names. So if there's any question about like teachers doing stuff outside the classroom, I don't address that one.
Yeah.
So we start with middle school club advisors as presented on the sheet.
Mhm. Do I have a motion to approve the middle school club advisors as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the high school club advisors?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, and then I heard you say the lead teachers. Did you want to
Yes,
say
that was,
something?
note.
That's included as
that's-
presented? Okay.
A massive list. too.
Yes, that sure is. Do I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 lead teachers as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you. All right, well, this was a short and sweet one. Agenda item 8.0 is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, thank you so much, everybody, and have a great night.